We're at 10,000 Waves in Sherman Oaks, California, with the one and only JoJo Ackermann. Amazing shop.
Thank you.
Tons of cool history, as you can see on the walls behind us. For the people that don't maybe know you that well, when did you start to get involved with tattooing?
Professionally, I started tattooing in 1992, but before that, it was through just being inspired by New York hardcore bands like Cro-Mags and Agnostic Front and seeing their tattoos. Me and my friends all wanted tattoos, and we started tattooing each other at a young age. I got my first tattoo at 14.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and we were just off and running, and I had a lot of jobs, construction jobs and so forth, just kind of getting my way through life. And I'd spend all my money at the tattoo shop after I was old enough to finally show up and start getting professional work. Went into a shop that was our local tattoo shop, and we would get tattooed there by a guy named Ricky Ball, who was one of our friends who was in the punk scene, who started apprenticing under Mike Pike's dad, J.R. Grove, and J.R. and Mike ran the shop. And so I started getting tattooed by him, and then I started getting tattooed by Mike. I met Mike. We had kind of struck up like a friendship in some ways, and then Mike was going to leave his dad's shop and open his own place, and he invited me to come and help him because it was more in my side of town.
Okay.
So I went over there and started helping Mike kind of put the shop together from the ground up. And I guess just kind of accidentally, inadvertently kind of fell into a tattoo apprenticeship. I was already drawing all the flyers for my band at the time because I was in a hardcore band, and I was drawing flyers and drawing on people's jackets and just doing murals at the local music store on the wall, like in my spare time.
Yeah.
I wanted to do something with art my whole life. I just didn't really know what. My mom was an artist, and my dad was an engineer, so I had all this other knowledge, but I was just grinding away in construction jobs and just trying to pay my own way because it was kind of paying rent at a young age, living by my own rules, and that cost money at the time, so I found tattooing, and as soon as I started matching my paychecks at the tattoo shop, I went and put my 2 weeks notice in, and I bounced. And
you were like, fuck that.
That was it. I just jumped in the deep end with Mike, and he took me under his wing and kind of showed me everything.
Okay, so Mike Pike is the one that broke you in?
Yeah.
I usually ask that question right off the bat, were you into art and stuff as a kid? You kind of already answered it, right?
Right.
I mean,
all right.
It's surprising to me how many guys I talk to that say they were into doing band flyers and stuff like that, like Richie Fi said the same thing.
Yeah.
Which is really cool, man, because music and tattoos is the ultimate handshake.
Right. It was at the time.
Yeah. Not so much maybe these days, but back in the day?
Yeah.
So what year was it that you started actually tattooing?
92. Professionally, under Mike's supervision, was in 92.
So we're talking 33?
Yeah.
33 years?
Yeah, 33 years.
Right on, man. So how long were you at Mike Pike's shop?
16 years.
Wow, okay. So you definitely put some time.
Well, Mike and I worked together for almost the whole time, and then for 3 years, him and I had a little side shop together out on the outskirts of town by the Air Force Base.
Okay.
But after the crash in 2008, and they basically kind of got rid of a lot of the military that were on base and stuff, it kind of dried up out there, and then I just kind of ventured out after that.
Okay. Yeah, where did you go after?
After that, I went to a little town called Santa Clarita.
Okay.
And a buddy of mine had a shop there. I worked with him for 2 years, just kind of hanging out at the shop, Eternal Art with Adam, and I worked there with him. And then Robert and I have been friends since 1996, and we had just done conventions together and events together and art shows together and stuff. And him and I had just been in constant communication about other stuff, but then the talk of a tattoo shop had come up between the two of us, and he called me one day on the phone. He goes, I know you're looking for a job closer to LA. He's like, but he's like, you started in 92, right? And I go, yeah. And he goes, yeah, me too. And I go, yeah. And he goes, well, we should do something together.
Wow.
And it was kind of his idea. I was already I was down to work with him wherever he was at, or work, I had a lot of friends in the area. I was just kind of feeling it out.
Right.
Not that I didn't like it in Santa Clarita. It was just I was just looking for something further into where my customer base was coming from.
Right.
He was working somewhat locally, about 5 miles up the road, and he was just driving around looking for spots, and we found this spot.
So that was going to be my next question. It's always been here?
Yeah.
Never anywhere else?
10,000 Waves has always been here. We've been here 11 years now.
I know that most people that know you know that you do like large scale, a lot of Japanese work, stuff like that, right?
Right.
What your
Japanese
twist?
inspired. Yeah.
There you go. I was gonna say style.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, I used to be really hardcore about trying to make it look as authentic Japanese as I could, and trying to make it, you know, I was studying to the point where I was like, I want to make it look just like their work, and people would think that it was Japanese, because I felt like I was disrespecting it by not trying to achieve that level.
To be like,
Yeah, but by the time I had gotten to a point where I felt like I was almost reaching that level, I realized that I was never going to be that. But I was, and still am, heavily inspired by it. I respect it. I ultimately respect it. But now I've figured out how to take my apprenticeship that I learned with Mike and the American style of tattooing and the Japanese stuff that I was passionate about and learning about, and almost try to fuse them together. And then I fall back on Ed Hardy, you know, and I think this is what he was doing. Right. I need to try and figure out something that fits me. And so the East meets West kind of concept kind of came into play. And we do a lot of that here.
Okay.
So East meets West is more what I would describe my style now as.
That's all right. That's
it's a blend. It's a blend of like what I really went into with the large scale Japanese. I started blending like the American, you know, American influences into that work,
right.
and kind of trying to merge them together. Sometimes it's more American, sometimes it's more Japanese.
You felt like if you weren't doing it like spot on, dead on Japanese, it was.
I was just striving for that. I had a lot of friends that were Western, that were, you know, from Europe or America, that were really pushing to try and learn the most about. I mean, I still study it. I still read the stories. I still know a lot about the lore, and I try to learn more and more every day. I'm still barely scratching the surface. 25 years deep into that, you know, traveling to Japan, hanging out with friends in Japan, speaking to them. Big help was Junii and Bill Salmon for me in that respect. Yeah. They introduced me to the Horitoshi family, and made friends with Horitoshi family members like Shinji and you know, Horizakura and Horimasa and Akira, different members of the Horitoshi family, and Horitoshi himself, who's been nothing but generous and kind. So feel very fortunate to met them and to be able to ask questions and to have those questions answered, and to just be, you know, kind of, and just have my friendship accepted, and to, you know, to reciprocate that, you know. It's
so I typically say, you know, where I ask, who's your favorite tattoo artist? So I think you kind of almost answered it for me.
Yeah, I can pick a different tattoo artist from pretty much every style that I think. I don't look at, you know, the style of tattooing I do it fits me because of my skill set. But I love all tattoos. Right. I love tattooing across the board. I love old school, traditional. Only, you know, I love even hyper realism and stuff if it's done right. I love all of it, and I can tell just from the amount of time I've been tattooing. I can look at something and go, "This is technically a sound tattoo," or I can look at something and go, "Well, you know, they're artistic, but they just aren't getting it in there yet," you know. And I can tell when I look at it. So I do appreciate all tattoos. So I can tell you, like, from a different perspective of different, you know, styles of tattooing. I can go, well, I really like this person's work. And people hit us up and go, hey, I want to get something like this, and we don't offer that here. I can send them to the correct person. Okay. That I think is the best person for the gig.
Right.
I mean, here in Southern California, we have such a large roster of amazing tattooers.
Yeah.
You know, I can send them pretty much anywhere within a 3-hour drive to get something.
And it kind of blows my mind, because coming from the East Coast, we always talk about like the East Coast, Bowery was like the boom of tattooing.
Right.
But then eventually it hit the West Coast, Bert, Grimm, the Pike.
Yeah.
You know, even some guys up in, you know, like Seattle, Oregon area.
Yeah.
Right. Now it seems to me, my own personal opinion, the Mecca is now here, which, because of the amount of talent that's here. It's insane.
Yeah, LA is becoming a tattoo city again, like, in a way. It was, and then it kind of faded. I mean, there was still like some very bright stars shining, like with Bob Roberts and, you know, Rick Spillman and all the guys at the Pike where Bob Shaw was there, and you know, there's still guys like Mark Mahoney are still working, and people that are just from the old era of LA tattooing that are still keeping it real and keeping it alive out here. I mean, there's still the old. I mean, you're here with us in San Fernando Valley. Like, one of the oldest shops in Southern California is still here over on Victory and Van Nuys. They have Emporium of Design is still there. And it's been there since like the early 70s, I think, or even the late 60s.
You know, what gets your juices flowing?
I mean, I try to find inspiration in a lot of different things. Sometimes it just depends on how I'm up in the morning, you know, depends on what I'm looking at, what I'm hearing, you know. Sometimes it's I'll hear an old song that I remember the album cover art will inspire me, or sometimes I'll run into an old friend and see some work that was done on them by somebody else, you know, 30 years, 40 years ago. Or sometimes it's things like that, you know, that tattooing is still something that I live, breathe, and eat pretty much on a daily basis. People always ask me when my days off are. I go, I don't have any days off from tattooing. It's my entire life. I mean, even on my days off, I'm still thinking about it, like talking about it.
At a restaurant, seeing something on a...
Still talking about it, working on it, talking about it with people online or in person.
Right.
You know, it's a lifestyle.
You know, I mean, you just talked about a lot of big name people that were, you know, influencing the East meets West thing. But do you feel like the jump off part in the United States was with Sailor Jerry, kind of blending the tradition and the Japanese?
Well, definitely Jerry was one of the first guys to do that.
Yeah.
There was a tattooer that worked on the Pike also in like the 60s and 70s named Phil Sims. And Phil also had like a tight relationship with Kazuo Oguri.
Okay.
And he has some really interesting history with Kazuo Oguri, and a buddy of mine named Jimbo, who used to work with them down there at the Pike, has a lot of photos of them together and some of their work. And I feel like there are still stories out there, and some unheard of stories that still haven't been turned over. I know that Jerry was in contact with Oguri and definitely kind of brought it to light. And I think Ed Hardy, having the knowledge he had in the time he had spent with Jerry, definitely like opened up that briefcase for everybody so that we could all benefit from that. And everyone has benefited from that in a huge way.
For sure. Because, you know, like, I think that initially when I started digging into that East meets West thing, obviously Sailor Jerry first, right?
Right.
But then I started digging into where it was like Don Nolan, Ed Hardy,
Cliff Raven. They were like the big three that really kind of maybe set a little extra gas to. Sure.
You know?
There was even guys in Europe like Doc Forrest and stuff that were also crossing into that, you know, crossing over. George Bone, guys that were bringing Japanese imagery into Western tattooing.
So, and I think that you and I actually had a little conversation about that earlier, where there's the people that kind of step out to the forefront. But then there's always going to be like the local legend guys, the local gods that had just as much influence on certain styles, but their name just didn't get thrown out there into the wind.
A lot of them don't want it that way.
That's true too.
I think a lot of guys don't want that. The old saying is like the magic is in the work that you're supposed to be doing.
Right.
You're not going to sit around and dream about it and make it happen. You have to put the work in, or it's not going to happen. And if you get recognized for something, you know, it's up to you after that what you do with it.
Right. Obviously, you're into the history of it from the Japanese perspective, but you also are into the history of it on the American side as well.
Of course.
And then you put together the Seaside Acetates book.
Right.
I think a lot of tattoo artists would be like, that is a must-have.
Yeah, I made it to be a tool for a shop. Like, you can use it at work.
What inspired you to put that together?
Back when National was having conventions, we were at a national convention and there was a silent auction on a lot of Bert Grimm's things that were, well, I guess a lady that was taking care of him when he was sick or when he was dying. The story I heard was that she ended up with a large collection of Bert's stuff and had held on to it for a long time because he, you know, I think he passed away in 83 or 8. It was 83 or I think 83 or 85. And she had it, and then it was just not seen until like 1998. And all of a sudden this stuff shows up, and we went down there and checked out the silent auction. The night before that, I won a 50-50 raffle, and I won like a few grand.
Oh, nice.
So I was like, I'm going down there and buying everything.
Dude, so like, not the stars aligned.
Yeah, it was definitely meant to be.
Wow.
So I went down there and I was like, okay, I'm doing this. I wrote my name on everything, and I just tried to get as much stuff as I could. There was a lot of other people there collecting. There was some people that were friends of mine, and we were all talking about it. So of course I wouldn't outbid like my buddies or whatever. So I wanted everybody to get a piece of the pie, you know.
Nice.
But I definitely had a wad on me, you know. So
was that like the start of your collection obsession?
that was the start of like the big part of it. But I had a lot of stuff before that. But
Okay.
it was all basically stuff that I had gotten from Mike and his dad, JR,
Okay.
because they had also had a pretty good collection of things, and things that for them were just like, you know, family heirlooms and just things that came around because they were a tattoo family, you know. So this was, for me, was like, oh my gosh, this is like the Bert Grimm stuff. This is like a huge piece of like tattoo history. I got to get a chunk of that. Well, there was the box on the ground that nobody was looking at that was just full of plastic acetate. So it was just this huge box, and we were like, well, how much for that, you know? And the lady was like, well, I don't know. Da, da, da. We're like, well, we'll give you like some money for it. We offered her, like, we didn't really pay that much for it. And we picked it up and we took it home, and we had this thing on the airplane. You know what I mean? And it was heavy.
Looking,
It was
going,
big,
holy
bulky.
crap.
And the trippy part about it was, I got home and opened them up and started going through them all, and there was over 900 acetates in there.
Wow.
And there were some really old ones in there, and there was some stuff in there that I've seen a lot of these like line drawing books and a lot of acetate books and a lot of things like that from different tattooers that people have put together over the years, because I also buy all that stuff.
Right.
And there was a lot of stuff in there that I had never seen before, like variations of things that, you know, of course you've seen 100 peacocks, but this peacock is trippy, you know what I mean? Like, it's really kind of laid out differently. There was a lot of things in there that had kind of a uniqueness to them that I thought, oh, this is cool. I'm a hoarder. I have a lot of stuff. I put it away, and I sat on it for a long time. And then I don't know what happened this year, but I'm always painting. I'm always producing art. I'm always constantly grinding, and I was in a slump. My dad was sick, and there was a lot of things going on, and I was just uninspired. And I didn't feel like really painting or coming up with ideas, and I was like, I got to do something though. I got to stay busy, and I didn't know what to do. And I was like, you know, I got all this stuff, and I go out in the garage and I just stare at it and look at it and enjoy it for myself. And I go, this would be something that'd be really cool to share with people.
Right.
And this would be a great
Can't
tool.
sit on it.
This would be a great tool for tattooers if I could put it together. So my brother and I got together and we just sat down in the garage and we Xeroxed them all out and copied them, because I have, you know, Canon Xeroxer in the garage, and we just copied them and hung out and listened to music, numbered them all, and put them all together. And then I have one of Bert Grimm's photo portfolios, so I had all the photos in there.
Oh, wow.
And I own a lot of his flash too, so I was like, well, I'll put together like a little package where it's like photos, flash, and then we'll do all the acetates in the back.
Right.
And then I was like, wow, this is like 160 something pages of just acetates, so like this is kind of heavy duty. And then I was like, well, it kind of looks like I have all this cool stuff, and then I just Xeroxed it and copied it and tried to sling it. So what I did was I was like, I'm gonna put my own labor of love into this and prove to everybody that like this is something that I'm into. I flipped over every single page and redrew every single acetate by hand and like cleaned them all up and did like clean line drawings on the other side.
Wow.
They're not super clean, but they're better than
Right.
some of the acetates are pretty dirty.
Yeah.
So like you get the blurry ones, you know. I flipped the pages over and I just cleaned them all up. And so every page in the book is two-sided. So you get the acetate on one side and you can see the outline of where the plastic laid on the screen and all that, and then you flip it over and it's just a clean.
Nice, dude. That's
Xerox, you
awesome.
still work with it. So I just wanted to put my own blood, sweat, and tears into it, and I put it all together, and it was received pretty well. A lot of people really dig it.
Yeah.
It was fun to do. I think it's a great book. I think it's a cool piece of, you know, tattoo history. It's also just a useful item to have. I mean, there's so much unique stuff in there. People are like sending me photos all the time of like tattoos that they've done out of the book or flash that they're painting by using the book and stuff,
That's awesome.
which I think is cool. So I feel like that's kind of a reward in itself, you know, that they're actually just people are just
Putting it to use.
when
Yeah.
they get it, which I think is cool.
So, you know, man, a lot of the old heads always say about like, you know, giving back to the craft. There it is, dude. You're done.
Yeah, I always try to find a way to try to emulate the giving back to tattooing, because I always feel like a lot of people try to take from tattooing,
Yeah.
or they use tattooing as an ATM and things like that. And I'm like, it's just not really like that. You know, like I said, it's a lifestyle for me. I mean, tattooing will take care of you if you take care of tattooing. That's
Right.
what I was always taught. And I just always feel like doing the wrong thing and not protecting tattooing is a disservice. So you have to nurture it.
Right.
There's people out there that, oh, the magic's gone, the cat's out of the bag, you know, it's over. But if you allow it, I don't allow that to happen in my life. I still believe in the magic of tattooing. I still possess the magic of tattooing in my heart. I feel like it's still there. I feel like there's people out there that I can relate to, and people that could probably relate to me a little bit on a lot of different conversations, a lot of different levels, that have, you know, there's a lot of discussions that can be had over those situations. But I mean, to me, the magic is still alive.
Right.
I still meet people that I've looked up to and admired. I still talk to people that I haven't met yet that I admire now. That I'm like, oh, what the heck? I didn't even know this guy existed, you know. And then I meet somebody that's just doing something just wild and
which is honestly, I mean, that's how I was. I think I knew some of your work. But then I interviewed Bert Rodriguez and he brought you up, and then I was like, hey man, I shot you a message and I was like, just letting you know, dude, I'm using your picture. Bert talked about you.
That's
and you're
cool.
like, oh, right on, dude.
Yeah, that's great. You know, I don't think a lot of people give Bert a lot of, you know, Bert changed the face of tattooing in Mexico.
For sure.
And he did a lot for those guys. When I went down there a couple of times. Bert and Henry Goldfield were down there, and I made friends with them. And you know, Bert is just is not only just a very super cool guy, but I mean, the amount of stuff that he did to like help them learn about sterilization, and just how to take themselves out of the homemade machine with no gloves, and all of a sudden now they're autoclaving, and they're, you know, now it's just, you know, thriving down there. And I mean, gotta give Bert a pat on the back for that. He changed the face for them. And he also hosted one of the best tattoo conventions, you know, Tattoos and Blues for years and years. And you know, a lot of guys I know that worked for him or worked with him, or you know, stuff like that. It's just, he's got a great legacy.
That's why I wanted to do that interview, because I felt like he needed a little light shined on him.
Oh, of course, yeah.
You know what I mean?
He's been tattooing forever now.
Didn't turn out to be the greatest visual. He was having a problem holding the phone.
yeah. Some of the sound was off and whatever, but I paid attention. You know?
Dude,
you turn the volume down and you turn the lights down, you can watch it. And
and you know what, man? Sometimes it just works out that way. And it was the best option at the time.
Right.
But I'm amped that I did it. I'm amped that it's now cataloged.
Yeah, it's great.
And to be fair, I've had people come and be like, man, I didn't know anything about Bert. I'm glad you did that.
Yeah, that's cool. That's great. And he's still alive, and you can still get a tattoo from him.
But I think where I was going with that, after I got done patting myself on the back, is the fact that old school generation guy like that respects you enough to bring your name up. So you did something right.
Yeah, I appreciated that. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I was surprised to hear him mention my name at all, because he's got so many stories and so many people in his life through tattooing. You know?
Right. What would you say is your like prized possession that you've collected?
That's a good question. I have one thing that I really love that I don't really bring out too much, but I have an old tattoo machine that Bob Shaw built that has Phil Simms' name engraved on it.
Nice.
And you know, I've always loved Phil Simms' work. Of course, I respect Bob Shaw and his work too. And just having that is just kind of cool. You know?
Right on.
I mean, it's just a huge part of like. I mean, I used to go down to the Pike when Rick Walters was, you know, in there hanging out. I'd go hang out with him for the afternoon or whatever at night after. You know, my daughter was living in Long Beach, and so I'd go down there and I'd just shoot over to the shop after I got done hanging out with my daughter.
Nice.
And you know, these Phil Simms flash in the back of the shop was. I mean, I would just be amazed by all that stuff. You know?
Right on.
I just had, you know, just a little chunk of what a little treasure from my memories. You know, of like, okay, this is awesome.
That's badass, dude.
So
yeah. So one more trick question.
Yep.
Alive or dead, if you could get one tattoo from anyone that you still want to get, who would it be?
Well, that's a crazy question, but wow. Well, two people I regret not getting tattooed by, but I own our original artwork from.
Okay.
But I regret not getting a tattoo from them would be Bob Roberts and Ed Hardy. Those are two guys I would love to get tattooed by.
That's a great answer, though.
But you know, Bob's no longer with us and Ed's retired, so you know, and I believe I don't know, it didn't present itself at the time like in my mind to like go forward. I buy the paintings and I have stuff, you know, but
or it turns into I just didn't have the cash at the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's just being a dumb kid.
I'm dealing with that right now myself.
Being a dumb kid, you know.
I'm dealing with that as an adult.
Yeah.
Going, damn, I just didn't have the cash at the time.
Yeah, just not really focused at the time and didn't pull the trigger, and that I regret, and I wish I could go back and do that. Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
Dude, I appreciate you hanging out, man.
Thanks, Buck.
Taking the time.
Thanks for stopping by, dude.
It was awesome. Love the shop, man.
Cool, thank you.
Anybody wants to get a hold of you, tries to get a tattoo from you, what's the best way to get in touch?
You can just go on my website, AckermannArt.com. And it's Ackermann with two N's at the end, Ackermann.
And then also Instagram?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, JoJo Ackermann.
All right.
Just use my name.
Cool.
All right.
Thanks for hanging out with us, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it. See you soon.
Cool. Thanks, dude.